Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my awesome friend.
Hello, my awesome friend. We are the show that talks about creeps from the past to the present. We have a present-day creep, and unfortunately, very newsworthy, and you'll figure out why as we get into it. You can follow us on Facebook with our basic Facebook page, but that's usually where people go to gripe about our language or the fact that we don't let them in our private Facebook group. Yes, we use salty language in this program.
Fuck yeah, we do. Deal with it.
We have a private Facebook group. You do need to answer 3 questions before you can enter our private Facebook group.
Questions are hard.
Questions suck. Anyway, we are on Twitter as long as Twitter still exists. At CreepPod. Exactly. And we're on social media. We're on Instagram, we're at What a Creep Podcast. And we also have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. That's where you can send us your suggestions for creeps and for non-creeps. All those places you can do that. But if you would like some stickers anywhere you are on the planet of Earth, you do have to be on Earth. But we will send them to you. So that's once again.
For now.
We may be hurling towards the sun any second, but until that happens, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And Sonia, do you want to talk to them about the website?
Yes, I do. I also want to tell people when you hear me go, please picture the shoulder shrug emoji. That's basically what I'm doing. Okay, so at the website, whatacreeppodcast.com, it's everything you ever wanted to know about our podcast, but we're afraid to ask. It has all of our past episodes in there, and each one of those has a link to our show notes. Every single episode has show notes. We're not making this shit up. We source everything that we do. We want to give credit where credit is due. The reporters are doing the hard work. We're just compiling it in a nice little story for you. There is also a link to our merch shop where you could get t-shirts and tote bags and journals and face masks. And sadly, maybe next year never goes out of style. You could get that one anytime you want. There's like Sonia with pink hair and Sonia with orange hair. And there's all kinds of fun stuff. Do it. And there's also a link to our Patreon. Why don't you tell them about that, Margot?
Absolutely. Patreon. That is the place if you want to support this show on a monthly or yearly basis. We put out 2 bonus episodes a month. We have our first 5 seasons there. And then we also put out a newsletter every month. And we want to thank the following people: Claire, Evie, and Christina, all of you for joining us in the last month.
Thank you.
For re-upping your subscription. We totally appreciate that. And as Sonia says, it goes to pay for the subscriptions to all the news services and also just for the software and the hosting of the show. We really appreciate all.
And when we say hosting, we don't mean you're paying us for hosting. We mean the actual sound file.
We don't mean in the sci-fi kind of way. We're a big pod and we suck people into it. Though that would be pretty awesome.
One of us.
And we also just want to say, please follow us on social media. It really helps us to find our people. Also, if you could leave us a review in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes.
Be sure to subscribe. But if you could leave us a review, they're just a few stars. That'd be amazing. Once again, it all helps us find our people. And we want more people to come join us on this journey to make the world a little less creepy.
Exactly.
Right?
Right.
God damn it.
We just want the world to be less creepy. God damn it.
If you are new to the show, hello. One of us comes up with the creep, and it could be a person, place, or thing, or it could be an event or whatever. And the other one is then challenged, tasked, whatever, to come up with a non-creep. So I think it's going to be a nice balance today, and it helps you feeling a little less hopeless about the world. And like I said, the news ain't great every day. I mean, there's been some perks lately.
Yes, there has.
The
We should do
indicament that the president
Yeah,
got.
the indicament. He's been indicated, y'all. He's been indicated.
Anyway,
Fucking-
this is not about that. Well, it is kind of about this asshole. But Sonia, do you want to talk about our creep today?
yeah. We're going to talk about Wayne LaPierre. So if you don't know who, actually, let's start with this because I almost forgot last time.
Yeah,
Sources for this episode, everybody. ABC News, The Atlantic, BBC, Giffords Law Center, The Guardian, NBC News, The New York Times, The New Yorker, PBS's Frontline, and Gun Down, The Power of the NRA. Vanity Fair had an excerpt from the book Misfire, Inside the Downfall of the NRA, which I also took a look at and got a ton of personal stuff about him that I didn't know. And of course, our good friends at Wikipedia. So, trigger warnings. There's gun violence, y'all, because this guy is the CEO of the National Rifle Association, and that gun violence involves, men, women, children, sadly, and even elephants. So please take care of yourself. Me too.
I'm a big elephant person.
This guy is garbage. So Wayne LaPierre is the CEO of the NRA, the National Rifle Association. He's the man who made the NRA the most powerful lobbying organization. It is very powerful. He's the man who said that the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. He's the man who blames mental illness, video games, and movies every time there's a mass shooting in this country, and I'm talking about the United States. So in other words, this prick is quoted in the media pretty much every fucking day. It's an organization that doesn't give a shit about life. It's helped really turn this country into a worldwide disgrace. Whee! Wayne LaPierre is a greedy, selfish prick who manipulates the public discourse on guns to keep those donation dollars flowing into the NRA. Seriously, fuck this guy. Fuck this guy. Let's start at the beginning. Wayne Robert LaPierre Jr. was born November 8th, 1949 in Sandusky, New York. Sandusky?
Sure. I can't see it.
Let's say that.
Okay.
But he was raised in Virginia in a firearm-free household by his parents, Hazel and Wayne Robert LaPierre Sr., who worked as an accountant for the General Electric plant in that area. He graduated from Patrick Henry High School, where he didn't have to worry about school shootings, and attended the Roman Catholic Siena College, where his father graduated from, where he also didn't have to worry about school shootings. Must be fucking nice. He didn't serve in Vietnam like a lot of men his age. No shade, but, he did receive a student deferment and then later a medical deferment, which is not known what his medical deferment was, just saying. So he never served in Vietnam. If he hadn't gotten into being a soulless ghoul for guns, Wayne might have gotten into teaching, believe it or not. Wayne had a soft spot for children and actually worked as a substitute special education teacher in New York for a while. I know, I couldn't believe it. But in 1973, he started a PhD program at Boston University, but he dropped out to help a Democrat, that's right, a Democrat, run for the Virginia state legislature. Few years later, he did graduate from Boston College.
Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Schenectady, New York.
Schenectady.
Schenectady.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was going to drive me nuts.
No, thank you. Everyone knows I can't pronounce shit.
That's okay.
He did eventually get a master's degree in political science. So he's got that. So just to point out again, our good friend here, Little Wayne, he's not little, by the way, he's like 6'2", but whatever, was originally a Democrat. He and by the way, the NRA, like a substantial population of that organization originally was Democrat. He declined an offer to work for Democratic House Speaker Tip O'Neill, and instead he got his job at the NRA. So this is where I want to get into a little history about the NRA, just so people know what we're talking about. Because if you don't live in this country, you're probably like, what the fuck? So here we go. The American NRA was actually modeled after the British National Rifle Association. Ours was founded in 1871 by like a couple of Civil War veterans. And it was a recreational group designed to, and this is a quote, promote and encourage rifle shooting on a scientific basis. So really what it was about was marksmanship,
Oh, okay.
like target shooting, and like instructional programs, also known as gun safety. So there was a passage of a National Firearms Act in 1934. That was one of the first like federal gun control laws in the United States. And the NRA, after that, formed like a legislative affairs division, not to fight the act, by the way, just to help their members understand what the laws were.
Okay.
It wasn't to be shitty. It was just like, hey, let's make sure we're obeying the law. Let's not be dangerous. So they formed this thing so that they can inform their members. There was the leader, the president of the NRA, this guy named Carl Frederick, actually said in a congressional hearing, I have never believed in the general practice of carrying weapons. I seldom carry one. I do not believe in the general promiscuous toting of guns.
When was this?
1934.
Wow.
I think it should be sharply restricted and only under licenses. This was the NRA, y'all, in 1930s. So 4 years later, there was a Federal Firearms Act of 1938. The NRA backed it, and it required a federal license requirement on gun manufacturers, importers, and people who sold guns.
Holy shit.
This is where they used to be. So the law also required like people who sold guns to maintain customer records, and it made it illegal to transfer firearms to certain people, for example, convicted felons.
Imagine that.
What? Guess what? So all this happened, and I just, spoiler alert, everybody, it wasn't the end of democracy, and no one came for your fucking guns. It was just basic common sense shit. How refreshing.
Right.
The NRA also supported the Gun Control Act of 1968, which created a system to federally license gun dealers and establish restrictions, again, on particular categories of firearms, like machine guns, assault weapons, things like that. It wasn't until the 70s. So for a long time, the NRA was nonpartisan. But in the 70s, let me backtrack. They were nonpartisan, and they mainly focused on like sportsmen, hunters, target shooters.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't about like, I need to take my gun into Starbucks to feel safe. That wasn't their jam. But then in 77, the organization started getting into political issues and forming these coalitions with conservative politicians, and most of them Republican. And if you want to guess why, it's the same reason that evangelicals started cozying up to conservative politicians and made abortion and gay rights their big issue, which we talked about a couple episodes ago. It was about fundraising and money, and these were issues that got people to give money. So in 1977, which is, by the way, when Jimmy Carter became president, they formed their own PAC, their Political Action Committee, to channel funds to legislatures. This is when they start paying representatives and Congress members to like fight for gun rights, because guns deserve rights, apparently. And now the current NRA lobbies heavily, very heavily, against like all forms of like any kind of like gun regulations. They argue that more guns make the country safer, which is provably false. They're all about like open carry laws, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically just to allow people to carry their guns around. They're just walking around Target with their fucking AR-15 strapped to their bags.
There's so many pictures you could find, and they're not
yes,
deep fakes. I mean, this is seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to be clear, because a majority of people in America support gun safety regulations. They support some sort of gun control, but there is a very vocal, like, trolley component of gun nuts. And the NRA doesn't make their money if they don't rile up their base.
Right.
So, again, a majority of Americans don't agree with this, but the NRA funnels a ton of money into politicians, and the politicians vote the way they tell them to.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the politicians don't even represent. They're supposed to represent us. They clearly don't. It's fucked up. So the NRA has about 3 million members. They'll tell you they have like 5 million, but the truth is they have like 3 million. And some of those members are pretty famous. We've got failed vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin.
Mm-hmm.
We've got pedophile / rock star Ted Nugent. We've got actor Chuck Norris, who starred in that show that your grandpa probably loved, and Tom Selleck, who stars in shows that my mom loves.
I
Charlton
can't hate on
Heston.
Tom Selleck, I have to say.
Look, he's got an amazing mustache. We all love Tom Selleck, but he also is a member of the NRA, which is, whatever. Like, again, not everyone in the NRA agrees with what's going on here, but the NRA is, pardon the pun, a trigger word. It triggers a certain thing in people in a certain picture. So I'm sure Tom Selleck is a very responsible gun owner. No shade at Tom Selleck, but seriously, fuck Chuck Norris. Charlton Heston was like very famously
my cold dead hands.
Yes,
will you take this gun?
Exactly. He was, very, very vocal, anti-gun control, that sort of thing. So now the NRA is among the most powerful special interest lobby groups in the United States. They have a huge budget that they use to pay members of Congress. And by the way, they're also technically a nonprofit. LOL.
Which is a big LOL.
It's my favorite thing. If you're wondering if Sonia has a theme this season on What a Creep, it's things that pretend they're nonprofits so that they don't have to pay taxes. That's my favorite thing right now, and the NRA is one of those. But they just, they suck. So here's a few ways they spend their money, and then we're going to get back to our good friend Wayne. In 2016, the NRA spent $30 million just on disgraced former President Trump, who's been indicated. He was indicted this week, y'all, and it just makes everyone downright giddy. And they got what they paid for. Like, his second week in the White House, he had Wayne in the White House, like, with a special meeting of conservative leaders and, putting people on the Supreme Court who are super into guns. And, they got what they paid for. In 2020, the NRA spent $250 million on Congress people, like, funding their campaigns.
I mean, some people are like, why do you want to get into Congress? Why do you want to do this? And it's like, because they make money. They make so much fucking money.
They make so much money.
Like, Lauren
and they are
of Colorado is a multimillionaire. This is a dipshit. Like, and she's another one. She poses. People in America, they pose on Christmas cards with their kids. Yeah, and the number of school it's like once a week now.
It's so
which is like the
disgusting
opposite of our childhood in such a short period of time. It's been normalized. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
You're fine. We've had almost 130 shootings just this year alone. We're 90 days.
Yeah, we're the last day of March. We're recording.
Yeah,
this.
Like, we've literally had a shooting more than once a day. A mass shooting, not it's very upsetting, and it makes me very angry. I get pissed, God damn it. So let's get to our shitty friend Wayne here. So these are the things I got from the misfire thing. There's a lot of so when he first started at the NRA, dude isn't well liked. He's more known for his wrinkled suits and his inability to make eye contact. He would get very detached when talking to you, and his eyes would kind of wander around, you know. But he was repeatedly promoted, even though he displayed no outwardly professional ambition or charisma. He failed upward, as mediocre white men are want to do. Yes. He started as a state level lobbyist in 1978. He was promoted to the head of that department a year later. And then he was directing like federal lobbying the next year, like just failing upward. Eventually, he failed his way all the way to the top. By 1991, he's the CEO of the NRA. But the dude's not really like super into guns or good with guns. There was a joke that used to go around the NRA headquarters that the safest place you could be when Wayne had a gun was between Wayne and the target. Staff described
Slam.
they would do
Snap.
yeah, Bart Wayne.
Mic
Bart.
drop.
Apparently they do these like promotional video shoots, and they would give Wayne like first of all, why are you giving this prick a loaded gun? But anyway, so he's just waving the gun around, like an engineer like calls his name, and he'll like just turn around and like point the gun at the engineer, like just no fucking safety, like no. Such an asshole. People were always like alarmed at his like lack of awareness of how dangerous guns would be. There was another joke that if you underperformed at work, they might take you hunting with Wayne.
You should tell them about your background, by the way, your dad.
Oh, yes. You know what? I should mention this too. I actually grew up around guns. My dad is still like an avid hunter. He's a sports hunter, like a sportsman hunter, I guess you would say. Like he's traveled all over the world. He kills animals. I'm a vegan.
Right.
We clearly don't agree. But I will say my dad is very safe with his guns. He has a gun safe. He made all of his children take gun safety courses. We all took gun safety courses. I don't shoot guns.
Right.
You know, but I appreciate like his thoughtfulness. And he has rules about his hunting. Like he doesn't kill female animals and stuff like that. And like he would never hurt like a baby animal. And in fact, rando story, here we go. He went hunting once in Catalina, I think, and somebody killed like a mother goat. He brought the baby home. We had a goat. Twice he did this. He brought the goat home.
How long did you have it?
We had it until it started to get horns, and then they get a little bucky. You know, they'll like come at you.
I love goats.
And then he like, and this is not a joke. People are gonna say it's not real. He took it to a farm. He like had friends that have like open land and things like that, and he gave it to them. And years later, someone's like, LOL, he took it to a farm upstate, Sonia, where it could play with the other goats. That goat's dead. And I was like, nuh-uh. So I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, remember when we had Billy? And he's like, of course I remember. I'm like, did you really take him to a farm? And he's like, I really did. He wouldn't lie to me now. He would have lied to kids, Sonia.
Sure.
But he would never. He wouldn't lie. Now he'd be like, no, I totally killed the goat and tried to make you kids eat it or something. Like he wouldn't. The goats went to live on a farm, y'all. I swear to God. It's a thing that happened.
But I want to say, too, like my mom grew up, my grandfather was a shooter.
Yeah.
He would take care of the land on these properties, like for the Pratt family in Long Island. And Mom said there was like a gun cabinet in like one of the bedrooms.
Yeah.
And same thing, like there was all this safety involved. And my mom was a really good shoot, apparently. Like she liked this. My dad was never into it. My mom was really into kind of handguns or rifles. She liked to shoot them, but safety first.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
We're not saying no
like,
guns. We're saying,
like, just fucking be safe, man.
Yeah.
And you don't need to take that shit into Target or Starbucks.
No,
Come
you
on.
don't need weapons. You don't need military grade weapons. That's what we're saying.
Exactly.
If so, then I want a tank, or I want one of those over the shoulder bomb things.
I want a
Tornado?
rocket launcher.
Rocket
I want a
launcher.
rocket launcher.
Okay.
No, it's just these. Yeah, but I know that like I come across like honestly like I am one of those people that I'm just like, you know, people are like they're coming for our guns, and I was like, fuck yeah, we're gonna take your guns. But the truth is like we're not gonna take your guns. Like I'm just like, can we be safe?
Right.
Like we don't need AR-15s. No one needs it. You don't need it for hunting. My dad does not hunt with an AR-15.
No, you don't need it. You
It's
want
ridiculous.
it, but just because you want something doesn't mean you should have it.
Exactly. And yeah, whatever. All right. So I do want to point out that this loser is actually married. Somebody actually loves him. It's so weird. But he was married. He had a first wife. I couldn't find anything about her, and I was like, maybe because she's embarrassed. I don't know, but
She
like,
disappeared. She's
yeah, he took her to a farm upstate somewhere. Like, look, I don't know.
She started
I don't know
running in
where
the
she
field,
is.
waved over her shoulder, like bye.
Bye. Like I don't know where she is. That's fine. Whatever. Her privacy's like she hasn't done shit wrong. Eventually, he married a woman named Susan Zendorka. I'm hoping I don't care if I pronounce it right, to be honestly, because fuck her too. They got married in 1998, and she runs the NRA's Women's Leadership Forum, which apparently is a thing.
Okay.
So according to the book, Misfire, I want to make sure I'm giving all the credit. Wayne is a bit of a spineless turd. That's
the
by the way,
hell
that's
you
not
say.
that's not in the book. That's my own phrasing right there. He's a spineless turd. So apparently, as they were like getting close to their wedding, like leading up to their wedding, Wayne is like running around asking pretty much everyone he knows if he should go through with it.
Oh,
This is how much of a pussy he is. He asked his staff, he asked his secretary, he asked his friends. He was to anyone around, they were all like, he's just looking for a way to get out of this wedding. Apparently, he felt very pressured by the bride into it. But again, he's too much of a fucking spineless turd to maybe say this isn't what he wanted. According to two close friends of his, because apparently he has friends, Susan sent out the invitations for the wedding without even telling him. Again, what a spineless turd. He went through with the wedding because Susan and the priest told him to. They describe him. These are friends, by the way, who describe him as a
I can picture him
remarkably
in confession. You know, forgive me, Father. I don't think I should do this. He's like, fuck you.
fuck you.
You are going through with this wedding.
I put on the special collar. We're doing this.
Fuck you.
These are his friends describing him. He's a remarkably weak-willed man. Can be counted on to yield to any demand if it's issued strenuously and loudly enough.
And can you picture him in meetings with Trump?
Exactly.
Bullies like Trump, you know?
Yes. Which honestly means his demeanor is not well suited for leading something like the NRA. Like, he just kowtows to whoever yells the loudest. And
yeah, but who gets that? I mean, this spineless little dweeb and the kind of power he has.
Yes.
And he probably doesn't even really appreciate, I mean, maybe he appreciates it on one level. He feels entitled to it, but Christ, on a cracker, like how many people's lives are affected because of him?
Yes. The best description I read came from a former NRA board member named Wayne Anthony Ross. I want to give him credit because he says that Wayne has the, quote, backbone of a chocolate eclair.
Ooh, now I'm thinking about a chocolate eclair.
No, that makes me hungry. So Wayne started to try to stand tough around 1995, and here's why. So in 1995, there were a couple of like big events that involved guns. So there was Waco, which, by the way, there's a documentary on Netflix out right now if you want to watch it, about Waco, Texas, and Ruby Ridge. And Wayne issued this statement through the NRA PR office that was like, described federal agents as jackbooted government thugs who have the power to take away our constitutional rights, break in our doors, seize our guns, destroy our property, and even injure or kill us. And then President George H.W. Bush was like, fuck you, and like resigned from the NRA. And then Little Wayne was like embarrassed. He's like, I made the president mad. So he went on Larry King and he's like, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to offend anybody. I apologize. And then this very vocal component of NRA, like influencers, if you will, were like, he's weak. Wayne is a pussy.
You never apologize.
Yeah, never apologize, basically.
Never admit you're wrong.
And he seriously, he took that. So from then on, he was like, I'm going to stand tough. So ever since then, his language, there's no compromise. No compromises on guns, on gun legislation, all these, again, we have mass shootings in this country almost every fucking day. And this prick issues a statement every time that is just we need more guns. It would be safer if we had more guns. That's his thing every single time. In the year 2000, this prick Wayne went on TV and said that then President Bill Clinton allowed a certain amount of gun violence because he just wanted to start taking away our guns and push for gun control. Can you imagine the fucking nerve, the fucking balls this man has to get on TV and be like, the president is just letting people murder each other because he wants to take away our guns.
Well, that's their logic.
And that's what they're doing. By the way, they said the same thing about Obama. Mm-hmm. They say the same thing. They want these mass shootings so that they can pass gun control. I'm like, nobody wants this. Nobody. Sorry, I don't mean to yell, but nobody wants this.
Big spike in my sound file.
Yeah. So sorry. So no significant federal gun control legislation has been passed since 1994. One thing has happened since then. They were able to get a bump stock ban. It was about ammunition, basically. And that happened in 2017 after there was a mass shooting, surprise, in Vegas.
Right.
Where this man killed 60 people at a country music festival in Vegas. And then there was some action. I do want to say that just a year before that, somebody went into a queer club in Orlando and killed 49 people and no one did shit.
Right.
It makes me so angry that it's...
Well, the gays are blamed and feminists are blamed also, and abortion is blamed.
Yes.
And now trans people are blamed because that's causing all that. That's what's so fucked up. It is so fucked up.
Yes. And this is just something, it's happening constantly here in the United States. It isn't something that's happening anywhere else. It's very upsetting. So every time these shootings happen, Wayne is on TV saying we're against gun regulations. It's about more guns. So, Sandy Hook happened, and the Sandy Hook massacre is so awful. It's 26 people. 20 of them were elementary school students. They were kindergartners and first graders. And I can't even get into it because I will start crying. This story makes me cry every time. Immediately, he does a press conference and he just says, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
We talked about him in this and Alex Jones, by the way, our Alex Jones episode. Yeah.
Yeah. In response to the idea of any kind of national database of gun owners, he repeatedly suggests that our liberal government is failing Americans by not creating a database of people with mental illness. That's what we need to track, y'all.
Because that's easy. Because that's so simple. Versus an object, right?
Such a fucking prick. He also puts the blame on video games and Hollywood films. And it's not about I don't know, the easy access we have to guns, by deeply disturbed people, and mainly disturbed young men. Like,
Also,
that's the thing.
There's a lot of family annihilations that are happening because,
Yes.
the disturbed guy breaks up with the woman, or she tries to leave him or whatever.
Yes.
And then easy access to guns.
Yes. And what's sad is a lot of these women who are murdered by the men in their lives are women who said something, tried to report things, tried to get restraining orders, and things are not happening. And these people are able to just walk into like a fucking gun show or whatever and just buy guns. And it's awful.
Yeah.
It's just fucking terrible.
And what these automatic weapons make a body look like when they're done. I mean, if people saw it, I mean, it's just, like you said, it's not for hunting. It is for destroying. I know.
They can't,
I'm sorry.
they can't even identify these kids.
No.
After they can't. And they're like, their ideas now of like, they're gonna like, well, we should start fingerprinting children or whatever. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, let's not control guns. Let's just figure out a way to make it easier to process a crime scene.
Yeah.
Like, let's fingerprint children. Let's buy them fucking backpacks that are bulletproof. Fuck this shit. And I'm
Yeah, I know.
okay. I'm gonna take a sip of my coffee here. By the way, y'all, I'm very caffeinated and yeah. So. Okay. All right. Let's talk about what a gross, evil, greedy motherfucker this dude is. Let's switch to that. Let's talk about the money. That'll. He is a greedy motherfucker. So in 2020, the New York State Attorney General, thank you, New York State Attorney General. You're doing the Lord's work always. They filed a lawsuit seeking to dissolve the NRA on the grounds that Wayne and other I refer to him as Wayne and not LaPierre because fuck him, whatever, and other top officials are using this nonprofit to make themselves rich. What?
Stop it. The hell you say?
What? That sounds crazy. That's bananas. Yes, they diverted tens of millions of dollars for personal trips. They paid people off to buy their silence about things and all kinds of awesome improper spending. They contributed to the loss of more than $64 million in 3 years. And here's the deal. Guess what? They're super guilty of it. They're super guilty. In July 2013, Wayne and his wife, Susan, went to a wedding in the Caribbean, and they cruised around on like a luxury yacht, and it was provided to them by the NRA for free. Like an NRA contractor gave it to them for free. That's inappropriate. And then our buddy Wayne is pulled into court and forced to testify, and he doesn't even mention the wedding. He says that he testified this under oath that he was on that boat because his life was in imminent danger, and it was the only place he was safe.
Quick, get me to a luxury yacht.
Yes. He said that trip, and by the way, it's the one of six summer voyages on that yacht in the Bahamas and the Caribbean, all that stuff. He does them all the time. He did them like over like a period of 6 years. He called them quote unquote security retreats. He said it was the only way he was safe. It was the only way he was safe. Sure. By the way, like, he also would bring like his niece and like her husband and stuff on these trips. They're fucking posting on Facebook, like checking in at places and shit. Like, you're not being safe. I could go to Facebook and see where you are right now, motherfucker. Fuck this guy. He's trash. So for nearly a decade, he was like doing these quote unquote security retreats. Quick, get me to the Bahamas. It's the only place I'm safe.
Running up the gangplank in a crouched position.
Yes, exactly. He failed to list these yacht trips on their like internal disclosure forms, which the organization rules state that you're supposed to do, and also like the law says you're supposed to do. He finally started filling out those forms the same day he was scheduled to testify before a judge. Like the day of, he's like fucking trying to do his homework. Like such an asshole. That niece that he brings with him on all of his trips, he also hired her to work at the NRA, and she would get all kinds of like perks that the other people in her position didn't get. Like she would fly in private jets all the time. And he in court again, so he's like under oath, he's testifying that she was an essential employee and that everything that they spent on her was for legitimate business purposes. And like former staffers would testify and they're like, nah, like, and they testified that like she would occasionally show up. She would do like menial tasks like ordering flowers. But most of the time they couldn't even find her. They couldn't find her. And then they
get a job like this.
It's so good. This is why
flowers.
I can order myself flowers. This is why
work.
This is why I went over my word count, because I couldn't include this kind of like stupid shit that I think is so like, it's so stupid. So they could never find her. People testified in court, like at an event that she was supposedly working, they could just never find her. They could never find her. And at one point they were told she was unavailable because she was doing a private photo shoot with her kid by these two photographers who work for like the NRA's public relations firm. Like, whatever. There's just like multiple stories of like Wayne flying his niece and her husband to events on a private jet, claiming his niece worked these events, and then people like who worked the event going, LOL, no, she didn't actually work that event.
She just got a free trip.
Exactly. Like at one point he spent like $27,000 on a private jet to fly her from like Dallas to Orlando. He used a private jet to pick up her husband in Nebraska and bring him to Vegas so that he could watch her child so she could work, but she didn't work, and then flew him home on a private jet. Dude, take Southwest like the rest of us. Take JetBlue. So anyway, Wayne, he just, again, all the time with the private jet, like flew his wife around in the private jet from Washington to Orlando. They'd stop in Nebraska, like pick up the niece and like the little baby. And it's like, that's almost like $80,000 right there. He would often like take private flights to the Bahamas, to and from the Bahamas, to feel safe. He would constantly like submit receipts to be reimbursed for gifts. Like he would buy Christmas gifts for his staff, his friends, and submit the receipts to like be reimbursed. His friends, he used the NRA money to pay for shit for him to do. Like he went to fucking NASCAR because of course he did. He went to country music shows. He even expensed medical visits. He billed the NRA for hair and makeup for his wife. He used one makeup artist for like one event, paid her like $16,000.
I'll do that.
Yeah, right. I'll do your wife's makeup. So in 2021, in federal bankruptcy court, he acknowledged all of it. He said that he secretly had taken the NRA into bankruptcy, and he hadn't even told the board of directors or whatever. Like, and then under questioning, he didn't know that the personal travel agent the NRA had hired, like, was charging a 10% booking fee on top of everything. So that travel agent was making $26,000 a month just off the NRA.
Holy shit.
I know. He didn't know that like one of his like former top people had arranged for his wife to be hired by the NRA. And then that her compensation was then being billed back to the NRA. Like he didn't. one of his personal assistants took $40,000 from the NRA to pay for her son's wedding.
Oh my God.
And he didn't. And when he found out, he still didn't fire her. He was like,
yeah,
what are you going to do?
The boss. Yeah.
Right.
It's free money.
You would
to all
think
them. It's free money.
He admitted all of this in court.
What an asshole.
Still didn't get fired. Dude's not fired. He still leads the NRA. He is now trying to use the bankruptcy as a way to like reincorporate the NRA in Texas because, as we've talked about in bonus episodes, unfortunately for the good people of Texas, this is where garbage people like Elon Musk and Joe Rogan and others go to do garbage things. So recently, the New York State Court ruled that the Attorney General cannot dissolve the NRA, which that's too bad. Yeah, but they can appoint an independent monitor to oversee the NRA's finances. Bad news, Wayne. And they can and the NRA can collect a whole bunch of like millions of dollars back from Wayne. So he could lose millions that he has to pay back to the NRA, which I honestly, fuck this guy. The fact that he doesn't get fired again.
Honest to God.
Again, seriously, if I expensed like a fucking book that wasn't covered for expenses at my company, I would probably be fired. But like this guy,
HR for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, this dude is now still running this organization. It's fucking bananas. One more thing, because I did mention the thing about the elephants. So last year, a video came out of Wayne, like from a hunting trip in 2013. He walks up to an African bush elephant and he just shoots it. Point blank, just shoots this elephant. Now, I would never watch this video because I would never stop crying.
No, I can't.
But from what I understand, African bush elephants are like one of the two remaining African elephant species. Like, they're not plentiful, let's just say. You know, they're almost extinct. Like, they're not like on the list, but they're like almost. It's very upsetting. His wife Susan then like had like the feet repurposed for stools and umbrella stands and even a trash can. They turned this elephant into a trash can.
These are garbage people. It makes sense.
Yes. And all the while, by the way, this was a trip, again, paid for by the NRA that is a gift from a donor. And so they do this trip. They turn this elephant into a fucking trash can, which boggles my fucking mind. And then, but they also wanted to erase the paper trail for it. So like they do all these things where they don't use their real names and all that so that people wouldn't find out, but it came out anyway. So seriously, fuck Wayne LaPierre, fuck his garbage wife, and fuck the NRA. That's our creep.
Oh my
Wayne
God,
LaPierre
Sonia.
and the NRA.
I didn't know about so much of that stuff.
Same.
This man is fucking evil.
He's evil. He doesn't give a shit.
No.
He doesn't give a shit about human life, about anything. It's about money and him just trying to live like his life and do his he doesn't care. The rest of the world could burn.
Yeah.
Garbage person.
All right, let's cleanse this podcast for a quick second, and then we will talk about our non-creep. So, Sonia.
Yes.
Do you know who Nan Goldin is?
No.
I watched a documentary. It's on HBO Max right now, and I think it's streaming in other places. You can rent it. It's a documentary called All the Beauty and the Bloodshed.
Oh, it's on my list.
Oh, it's okay. So let me talk to you about Nan Goldin. Yeah. She was born 1953 in Washington, D.C. She's an activist. She's a photographer and an activist. She grew up in, like I said, in DC. She had a sister who had a lot of issues. Like, she grew up in a very 1950s suburban home where people don't talk about their fifis. They don't,
Correct.
everything's kind of this haze over everything that's going on. And she had a sister who was struggling psychologically. And her sister, unfortunately, died by suicide as a teenager. And
It's awful.
Goldin was very young. They were very, very close. And they never talked about the death. They never talked about, there's no therapy going on. And Nan, by the time she's like 13 or 14, she leaves home with a boyfriend.
Okay.
She's in and out of the home. She goes to Satya Community College in Lincoln. I'm not sure exactly where that is. That's not the story, but she's as soon as I love this story because she said she started taking pictures. She said and made her feel like she was a part of the world and she could see it, and she knew that someone could be taken away from you in no time. So pictures are like your chance to, you take pictures all the time. I take pictures all the time. It's like, it's just commemorating a moment.
Yeah.
And she just happens to come to New York City, first in Boston, and then she moved to New York City with her boyfriend. And this is like the late 60s, early 70s, when there's this whole movement of artists and gay culture and all that going on. And so she spends the 70s partying, meeting lots of cool people. By the late 70s, she's working there's a bar in Times Square where people would just hang out for hours, like 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And it was kind of the safe space for women to go to, for gay men to go to, for just people to hang out. They'd play rap music way before anybody was playing rap music. They would her whole thing was she did these slideshows. And she would she would do a different show every time and put it to different music. She's a photographer. She's got shows all over the country. She got some success early 80s, but she also faced a lot of sexual politics of men saying like women can't be artists. Women can't open gallery shows. Nobody will show up for a woman. And she knew Warhol. She knew all the Warhol people. In the 80s, her friends started dying. They started getting AIDS and they started dying. So she was one of those people that she took tons of photos of the crisis, of people as they were deteriorating, of people in their element when they were younger and then aging, just in a couple of years and dying on her. Her best friend died when she was 40.
So awful.
It's awful. I mean, there's a whole generation of choreographers and actors and stuff that just were taken out. In the mid 80s, she was dating a man and they had a very charged relationship, very sexually charged relationship. And so they kind of stuck together. That was sort of their glue. And after a couple of years, it turns out he's a very depressed guy. He's not really motivated to do things. She's the one that's like doing her thing. She's a bartender. She's a photographer. And this guy's kind of a layabout. And he one day just explodes on her and beats her up. And her friend rescues her, and she said her artwork was at a studio because she was going to put on a show the next day, and she decided not to bring it home with her. She says if she brought it home with her, he would have burned it to the ground. Like, it was all trying to destroy her. She took pictures of herself as she was recovering, and it's a book that's called The Ballad of Sexual Dependency, and it's a lot of it's about like sexuality in the 70s and 80s. And it's about, excuse me, being a battered woman and putting a face on it.
Yeah.
And she started helping women, and it was helpful to women to see this, somebody to kind of like, this is what happened to my face. This is what my boyfriend did. She breaks up with him, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you.
But she learn. So there's the post Stonewall, there's gay culture. This is when ACT UP is really a big San Francisco and in New York.
Yes.
And they had the ACT UP movement was very performative. Like, they would do these mass like grave sites on the White House, like in front of the White House, or it was like people were activated to be like, this is the toll this is taking. And she was a part of it. She took the photos. She went to the meetings. She was really passionate about this. And then she's getting a bit older, and the ACT UP thing goes on, and she becomes she's a legendary photographer. Like I said, she's had shows all over the world. She gets an issue with pain. She's had some drug problems in the 80s, and she went to rehab, but she had a medical issue where she developed pain, and the doctor started prescribing her OxyContin and said, you need to take this every 4 hours, every day.
Okay.
Don't let the prescription go. Just keep taking it. And this is a person who had addiction issues, and she said, "Well, this is addictive." Like, oh no. And soon enough, she's addicted.
Yeah.
So, long story short, she gets clean, and she finds out that the biggest promoters of this drug are the Sackler family, which is, we'll do an episode about the Sacklers. Believe me, they're on the list. There's Dope Sick was a great show about it. And she just forms a group called PAIN, Prescription Addiction Intervention Now. And she's in New York City. And she's getting people together, and they're like, where can we get them? Because the NRA, you can't get them. They're proud of who they are. The Sacklers just are such mysterious people that you can't get to them. You know what they look like, barely, or whatever. But they have their names everywhere on museums around the world.
Yes.
And
I've seen it. I've definitely seen it out and about. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
And Nan was enraged and started. So she got these people together and said, we need to protest these museums. Like, they're going to have a cocktail party, everybody go. And then we're going to all pretend we're dead on the floor, and we're going to like this. And they start doing this. And within 4 years, the Sacklers' name started to be taken down. Like, all these places, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, they were huge.
Yes.
But all these major museums around the world started following suit. Like, it wasn't just enough to not take, they first started not taking their money, but then they started taking the name down.
Yes.
And that hit them in the balls, because that was their whole thing, is that, we're so good for the community. We give so much. Yeah.
This was their attempt to legitimize the shit they do.
Right.
It's like, isn't it in Godfather 3? He wants to do all the shit for the church to make up for all the bad shit he's done. Like, this is what they think they're doing.
Right. It's also the same with the Rockefellers. But you could say they had a monopoly and they crushed their competition. But don't you love our museums and our libraries?
Yes.
I kind of do. So, but I won't lie. But that was sort of the thing. Like, okay, we do some shitty things, but we also do good things with our money. So they were almost kind of quaint in that respect, because a lot of business just plain old don't give a shit. They're not going to. Yeah. So anyway, that's where we are. So it's a documentary. It's terrific. It's called All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. I think you can rent it on YouTube. And she's so cool and interesting, and such a great example of just using your best instincts and the things you learn in life and just applying it over and over again to help other people. And that's her whole thing. She just wants to help other people.
That's such a good pick.
Yeah. So it's Nan Goldin, everyone.
Good job, Margot. I think that documentary was nominated for Best Documentary at the Oscars, and then I saw it was coming and I put it on my list. Was it nominated?
I don't know, or maybe about that.
Or maybe it was just a contender, because I definitely had heard of the documentary and then saw it was popping up on HBO, and I was like, dink, put that on the list.
She has collections, Art Institute of Chicago, Getty Museum, the Guggenheim, the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I mean, she's a big fucking deal. So when she shows up at a museum and says, take this shit down, people listen. So that's
awesome.
Her, right?
It's awesome.
All right. You know what else is awesome? Us.
What? Us.
If you like the sound of our voices, and if you stuck it this far, you probably do. We co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. Sonia, what will be the next movie we are covering?
Oh, it's baseball season, y'all. So we are going to talk about Major League.
I'm super excited to watch this one again.
Yes, I'm going to be watching it tonight. Did you already watch it?
No, I'm going to watch it tonight.
Yeah, I have thoughts and feelings about Major League, I'll just say. But also, I'm just excited baseball's back. But it's going to be so fun. This is going to be one of those movies that's like really fun to talk about because it's got a very interesting cast and stuff that ages well and stuff that doesn't, I'll just say.
Very good, Sonia. All right. Ooh. When you I'm channeling the Watch What Happens guys when they talk about Real Housewives of New Jersey. Ooh. Anyway. Ooh. So please, if you have suggestions for creeps and non-creeps, follow all of those places that we mentioned before. We love it when you use the Annie Potts GIF. We got one from Ghostbusters, or just be clever. Sonia, where can they follow you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and the TikTok. Where can people find you, friend?
You can find me at Brooklyn Margot on Twitter, as long as that still exists. Instagram, it's at Brooklyn Fit Chick. Also, my site is brooklynfitchick.com, and I'm on the TikTok at Margot Donahue. And I was saying to Sonia, I was hoping that if y'all could please follow me. And I'm pitching a few things for books and projects and things like that. So I need to show my social media engagement numbers. So
yes.
If y'all don't mind, hit the like button wherever you are. Your favorite thing, that would be amazing.
Yeah, and also there's a lot of things going on Twitter right now with their like algorithms and like the blue check marks are going away and all this stuff. So as all of that is happening, we want to make sure that we're still